that's how I want to sell the fight, at least, that I'm coming in, I mean, as a 5-1 underdog, which is crazy. I mean, I'm the former champion. How can you say that when Ronda's literally had one fight in my division? But that's how I'm coming in, and I'm ready to come in and, you know, slide that red carpet out from Ronda's feet.
Is there a bit of a temptation at times to sort of step out of your own comfort zone in order to sell the fight?
You know, I try and do that to some degree. You know, I try and push myself farther than I'm comfortable pushing myself, but I also have a line and have limits as to what I'm willing to do to step out of that box as well.
Dana White was asked yesterday at the press conference about women's MMA coming to the UFC. I know he's really big on Ronda, you know, obviously because she's very marketable. And usually when you ask that question to him, he's like, no, there's not enough. This time he paused and he thought about it, and he kind of went like this. Do you think you guys are closer and closer getting sort of, you know, to be on that larger stage in the UFC?
Absolutely. Honestly, every fight, and that's why every fight matters, but every women's fight that's out there that's shown, that's exciting, is another positive step towards getting into the UFC. And I mean, Dana went a couple years ago saying he would never even watch women's fighting, to, well, I'll watch it, but I don't want to put it on, to, well, I only like Gina, to, well, at this point we're not going to have fighters because there aren't enough, to, oh, well, you know, it's not going to happen right now, but, you know, I think every day is a step forward, and having Zuffa acquired Strikeforce is, again, Dana's now almost forced to work closely with the females, and he's seeing what we can do and that we can bring in numbers and that people want to see us fight.
His big objection is that the women's, like your division, just, you know, there's you, there's Misha, there's Ronda. Rondi. After that, it kind of thins out, and the division isn't deep enough, and that's his main objection right now. Do you agree with that, and do you see your division sort of getting that depth?
I actually feel like there is quite a lot of depth in the division, but right now, under Strikeforce, they only have a certain number of fighters. And so, you know, I know that a couple of the fighters that I fought in Strikeforce, I fought them and then all of a sudden they were gone. You know, they didn't get to stick around to actually help build that division. And so the people that are known, you know, myself and Ronda and Misha, you know, Alexis Davis a little bit because I just fought her, you know, fights that have recently happened people know about, but they don't know about all the other fights that are still happening. You know, Invicta Fights, they have an entire female card that they're putting on with really high-level females. And I think that Zuffa's probably going to start pulling from there. And half of them are actually Strikeforce fighters.
Can you recall back, and I think it would have been 4 years ago or so, you were fighting in the corral just over here for hardcore. And can you maybe explain how your life has changed from that day when there's very few people in your city to today?
I mean, that day was a pretty big opportunity for me because it really was.
And you kicked some ass. Yeah,
it was fun. I liked that fight. It was good. You know, it really was, you know, my kind of initial big stepping stone, because I'd gone from, you know, I fought in the TKO fight right before that, Valley Laterno, and that was a huge crowd attendance, but it was still someone who was around my experience level. And fighting Janelle Marquez for that first title, you know, I didn't know what to expect in a 5-round fight, or fighting someone who'd been fighting for like 4 years, and I'd only been fighting for a year. And seeing the, you know, just the fans getting behind a fight like that, you know, I think a lot of them hadn't seen females fight before, and it was a really positive reception. And to go from that, you know, just those fans there, to now people either knowing who I am or who other females are, and actually asking for those fights. You know, and that's only in, you know, 4 or 5 years. That's a huge growth over that time, even though there have been kind of a couple steps forward and then a couple steps back, and it's kind of waved up and down with popularity. It's always there, and it's kind of that continual baseline of fans. It's constantly growing.
With a year and a half or so left on the Strikeforce contract, and as you mentioned, Dana White's changing view on women's MMA, do you see the next year and a half, I guess, as an audition period or a chance for women's fighters to really show on a Strikeforce platform, you know, what kind of value there is for women's fighting in the UFC?
100%. And I hope, I mean, on August 18th, I know that I'm fighting Ronda, Misha Tate and Julie Kedzie are fighting, and then there's a third female fight on that card as well. And I think it's Jermaine Durandamy. I think is her name, and she's fighting Yamanaka. So I mean, it's great to see that Strikeforce and Showtime are putting more female fights together, and Sean Shelby is doing a great job of trying to get females active and involved and seen. And so over this next year and a half, it's really important that Strikeforce on every card is going to have females, I hope, because that's going to keep the fans involved, and that's what Dana wants. He wants the fans to be invested in these females and in these athletes, and he wants them to pay to want to see them. Because if people are like, oh well, I like watching them, but I don't want to pay for it, we're not bringing anything to the table. And as soon as we are, which I think we are at this point, it's going to open Dana's eyes and say, yeah, this could make me some money, this could make UFC some money, and this could bring in a different clientele or viewership that we might not have had before. And that's what's really important.
What do you really plan to bring to the table against Rousey? I may have missed this at the beginning, but what do you want to bring to the table to get those fans, to get Dana's attention even more?
I think it's important that it's not a one-sided fight for myself or for Ronda, because I think, if Ronda comes in there and armbars me in 5 seconds, I'm a high-level athlete and I'm a legitimate contender, and I've had that title, and that almost would say to Dana, oh yeah, see, Ronda's had 6 fights and she can beat every single person on the planet. But if I come in and I, just flatten Ronda out with 3 punches, it's almost that same thing where, we had Ronda all pumped up, but clearly she's not even that good because this girl who I don't even know her name, comes in and squishes her on the floor. So I think it's important that it is an exciting fight, that there is some back and forth, and that there is that almost drama to it, where it's like, oh, is she going to get knocked out? Is she going to get submitted? I don't know what's going to happen. And then there's a finish of some sort, hopefully me getting.
Yeah. Well, those are the best kind of fights, right? We all like to see a little bit back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those knockouts once in a while, though, are pretty awesome.
They're amazing.
Do you still have any hard feelings that you were passed over against Misha or Ronda for that last fight in the championship?
I hold a grudge for certain things. I think you have to look at it as a fight and say, this is the fight I have now. It gave me the opportunity to have a really good fight with Alexis Davis and showcase both of us, and almost get me in that fight mode again, because I've had quite a few fights where my opponents haven't really come and showed up to fight me. They've kind of almost showed up to not lose, not win, not lose, just not get killed, pretty much. And so with Alexis, she was game and she was there, and it made it an exciting fight, and it really got me back into that fight mode. And I think that that's really important for this fight with Ronda. And I also think it's probably a little nerve-wracking for Ronda, because she hasn't been in a fight where it's been an actual fight.
How much do you watch and try to learn from people on the mic? You've admitted that you're not quite as comfortable as others, in terms of cutting a promo, or, Ronda's good, Chael's good, some others very, very strong in that aspect. Do you pay attention? Do you watch these ones and try to, pick some, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then maybe get more comfortable?
I try and work from a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
I try and have confidence in what I say, and my confidence is that I believe what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Chael does a phenomenal job of being Chael and just saying the most ridiculous things that are clearly not true, but are hilarious, and he says them with such conviction that you're like, all right.
Maybe he is the champion.
He has no losses on his record. I've never seen him lose. And he's that good at it.
Sure.
And that's not me. Like I'm not, and I wouldn't even say it lying, because I don't think he's trying to prove it as fact. He's just saying things, and he just, as I say, has so much conviction with them that you're like, that guy's awesome. So there's just different parts that I try and pick and choose, try and be confident and try and say things that matter and that people want to actually hear an opinion about.
Yes.
And I think it's important to be opinionated and not just oh, well, everyone's lovely and roses are pretty.